All right, well, welcome to ANCA's event tonight. This is a real special event. It's not something we've done before exactly by having you all be the main participants in this. And I know you're all excited about that, right? Okay. You have the clicker there? So, so what we're doing, is this yours, Nick?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I want to introduce Nick then. We're not going to have any big announcements beforehand. We will after in terms of our next event. But again, we're looking at what kind of future can we build together. And we're really pleased tonight to have Dr. Nicholas Reston as a facilitator for this unique program, where we'll visualize Redlands in the year 2075 and think about the community we want to leave for future generations. Dr. Reston is an associate professor and chair of the Department of Economics at the University of Redlands, where he teaches courses that integrate concepts of sustainability and social justice in economic analysis. Courses include ecological economics and economics of climate change. His research has explored the role of social norms in climate and immigration policy. Recent work looks at the relationship between nationalism, inequality, and immigration aversion. He has also investigated the sustainability decisions at large companies. Nick received his PhD in economics from American University. So with that, Nick, take over the program.
Great. Thanks so much for the introduction, Dick, and thanks to all of you for coming out for this event. So I'm really excited to be here and to be a facilitator for this. I think this is a really important event, so we'll get to what we're doing and why, and then we'll get into it. So, we are imagining that the year is now 2075. So we have to use our imaginations for this. This is our scenario. Outside of this room, it's become 2075. And Redlands is a sustainable community. And what that means is what, to each of us, is what we're going to be figuring out. So we're just going to accept that for now. What does that look like? What characteristics does this kind of sustainable community have? And tonight we're going to describe that together. Now, I am, of course, a college professor and academic, so I do need to say a couple of things about why we're doing this and draw on some experts who have said some interesting things about this to, I think, kind of set the stage. So, and I'll restrain myself and limit myself to just a couple of examples so that we can get to it, but this is important. So, in the 1960s, there was an economist named Kenneth Boulding who wrote a really important piece called Spaceship Earth, which was really the first time in a major way that an economist had written about the global economy as limited in terms of the environment. So he asked everybody to imagine that we're kind of floating on this spaceship through outer space, right? Which in the 60s was a new concept to folks. And in this piece called Spaceship Earth, he says something really important. He says that the welfare of the individual depends on the extent to which he can identify himself with others, and that the most satisfactory individual identity is that which identifies not only with a community in space, but also with a community extending over time from the past into the future. And he goes on to say, there is a great deal of historical evidence to suggest that a society which loses its identity with posterity and which loses its positive image of the future loses also its capacity to deal with present problems and soon falls apart. So I think these are really striking words and words that have struck me when I've read them. And others have followed. So Japanese economist Tatsuyoshi Saijo does exercises very similar to this in a framework that he calls future design with communities in Japan.
Yeah, I was afraid that happened.
Okay. Is the other one? Or should I just?
It's, I think it's battery up here.
Okay.
But I can plug.
I'll just project for now. Yeah, and then lastly, I was really struck a couple weeks ago by something that I read by a climate scientist at the University of Washington, Mead Crosby, who said, allowing yourself a vision of the future you'd want for our country and planet, not the one you'd settle for, not the one you fear, but the future of your dreams, isn't naive. It's a vital cognitive skill. That's how we articulate what we most value, what's worth fighting for. It can seem Pollyanna-ish to imagine wildly positive futures at times like beat this, but that's when they're most powerful. A light to guide our way out of the dark. Fascism wins when we can't remember what a better world looks like, when it doesn't feel possible. Nurturing our dreams is resistance. So I think that speaks to the why of our exercise. Now, before we get fully started, just a couple of caveats to set a few bounds that I think are productive for the exercise. We are here, in the spirit of the quotes that I just read, laying out a positive vision of the future. That's the point of the exercise. So I know that we might need to make some seemingly heroic assumptions, which include assuming that we've solved major global environmental problems by 2075, and hopefully a less heroic assumption that the city's climate action plans proceeds as planned through 2050. So we've taken all the steps involved in that. We also, just to kind of, forestall this, we are assuming, whether or not you believe it'll happen, that there's no super intelligent artificial intelligence that tell us what to do. And so I would say in that spirit too, right, we can imagine a lot of like weird things happening in the next 50-ish years. So we'll assume that those things like, nuclear war or aliens invading like haven't happened. And I think that's okay. The point of the exercise is to focus on the good things happening here. So the other thing that I think is really useful is that when we were first talking about how to do this exercise, it's okay.
It's praying behind you.
As you'll see a couple of copies on your table, ANCA have already developed an outline for what the elements of a vision might be, right? Now, I don't want this to be restrictive, but it might serve as a useful starting point for discussion as you're going. Like, what does a sustainable community look like? Well, let me talk about like the food system or the transportation system, right? So it's meant to be a helpful guide, but not constraining as you go. So what we'll do then is get into it. So we're going to have folks at different tables, and if you want to combine with a table where there's more people, you can feel free to do that. And just go through several steps. So what we'll do, I'll keep time and sort of suggest when maybe you should move on to the next element of this. But basically, this is going to be a process that unfolds in a few different stages. So the first stage, which I want folks to discuss at your table, and we're going to distribute some paper for you to write key ideas down, is the big question. What are your long-term hopes for Redlands for 2075? What do you hope the community looks like after most of us are gone, after we're really old? And you can use the ANCA vision as a starting point if you like. Where would you like us to end up in 50 years? Then, after you've kind of fleshed that out, you back to our current reality and think about the different things that have come up. What do they look like now? What should we leave here, and what can we take with us into the future as we go? There's 4 parts to this. The third part is a little bit quicker, thinking of some intermediate steps. So you've got kind of a destination. I hope that the community looks like this and has these things and these elements. Here's what it looks like now. What are a couple of points along the way that you might want to talk about? You don't want to be super strict about it, just, you know, some intermediate things to connect the dots here. And then finally, what are some first steps that we can take now as a community? What might get us just like moving forward a little bit? Are there ideas that we can get started with? What can we start doing today? Because that's what we want everybody to be able to take away from this. So we'll do that, and then each of the tables will get a chance to share their key ideas, and we'll go from there. Okay. So, does anyone have any questions about what we're doing?
I'm just suggesting that some of us that are just a few other table, maybe have 5 per table.
Sure.
A minimum 5 per
Yes.
table
That
would
sounds
be
great.
helpful to the discussion. I think we could remind ourselves.
That sounds good.
So each table isn't going to discuss a specific item?
They don't have to.
I think we can try and get forward. Oh, okay.
Such a good idea. I hate to cut folks off, but we should make some time for sharing ideas between tables and summarizing. I know that this could have gone on for longer. Another session where it does sometimes. So, as we wrap up, I'd just like us to take, for each table, like 4 or 5 minutes to give some of the highlights of your discussion. You don't have to, I can take your paper and just put it up there. You don't have to, list off everything, but just if somebody, quickly at each table wants to figure out who's gonna talk, and others can chime in, right? But I'm gonna cut folks off so that make sure that everybody has enough time. I'm not trying to be mean. Okay, so and I'm also gonna take notes, so I'm gonna just unplug this for a second. Okay, so why don't we want to start up here?
Sure, we're sharing all of them, or just one?
You can put the paper up there so that people can read if you want, and then just talk for a minute.
Okay, so our first section is our long-term hopes for 2075. So for Redlands, all electric transportation, no more reliance on fossil fuel vehicles. With that, we'll be passing to public transit, so not just personal, but expanding to public transportation options in Redlands. Reliant on renewable energy in all sectors, not just transportation. And then native and sustainable agriculture, so focusing on local food systems, especially like we talked about community-based systems, neighbors growing things and sharing those things with one another, and also supporting local farmers, focusing on more native, sustainable, renewable agriculture, so moving away from the monoculture system, having food co-ops instead of supermarkets. I love this idea, warehouses transformed into greenhouses, so reusing the buildings and structures that we already have. And then finally, solar covering for parking lots to go on top of the warehouses. So using the space that we already have allocated for something else, for a second purpose.
Anyone want to add anything? We've got like 1 more minute.
Okay, so this is the keep versus lose section. So what we have right now, what we want to keep is local farmers, and obviously we want to expand upon that. And trees in general, like tree coverage, increase our local tree crops and like native plants in that. Obviously the train in Redlands right now, it could be made better, but of course it is something that we want to keep as public transportation. And then democracy, always important. Citizen input, which is what we're doing right now. And then also an emphasis on local sustainable policy. So kind of what we're doing right now, and then also influencing our local governments to create sustainable policies. And then lastly is educating voters. And then, so what we want to leave first and foremost is fossil fuels is definitely something we don't want. The warehouses as they are for their purpose currently is something that is harmful, as well as plastic, chemicals, and then also for-profit internet spaces, because the internet can be used for good, but oftentimes we see that for-profit internet will like distort our like viewpoints on the world, and it can be used for bad things.
Awesome. Thanks so much. This is great. I didn't read everything, but it's awesome. Yeah. All right. So, well, we can make room for there's we can just stick it on top. That's a great idea. So back here next. Great. Yeah. That's fine. I think if you're okay holding it. And then the next one, please go over it.
So we had a lot of overlapping ideas. I would say a couple spaces where we were a little bit different than group number one was having a little bit more walkable cities. So having things close to you like grocery stores that you could go just like take a short walk from your house and be able to get your goods locally. And then we have water catchment systems that we think might be good. You could do that by repurposing or redoing streets to be, and sidewalks to be permeable. That way water flows through them and you can have a catchment system laying underneath. That way we can reuse groundwater instead of it going to sewers or other spaces where it's not readily usable. Having wastewater turned into ecosystems. There's a space in Chino that does this, where they were able to repurpose it and use it so that wildlife can have an interaction in a new system. Having energy efficient buildings written into the code more. There are some, and the example that I was thinking of is Cal Earth. That's in Hesperia. That is a super Adobe method that's written into the San Bernardino County Building Code, but utilizing that method and having other sustainable building methods written into the building code so that people can do those more easily without having to like prove safety things and whatnot would be great. Again, more native plants like how Group 1 had said, and also having less invasive species and less sterile species so that pollinators have a better environment to work with. The rest of ours is pretty much.
Oh, so the thing I brought up was, I was saying that you need to like, incentivize people to be more environmental friendly. So I was thinking like having tax write-offs for having more green ideas or so the big corporations or big businessmen who have money can help finance everything. Yeah, that's pretty much what I was bringing.
We also did the same thing with the warehouses, but turning them into like green community spaces.
That's great. Cool. Thank you so much. This table right here. Yeah. Perfect.
I can go with you.
Smells like great marker here. Okay. We had some ideas kind of like jumping off of from what other people talked about. Definitely improving public transportation, microtransit, bikes, walking. We also did talk about permeable roads. And one other thing that we talked about was more green jobs, making our economy more sustainable, making it more diverse, so then that kind of influences us to utilize the local economy and makes more things available locally. And then,
You're doing good.
we want to definitely conserve our native plants and conserve our open spaces. And then we got into some like really fun big ideas. Some of them were the kinetic roads, seeing if we can get generate energy from cars that already exist, geothermal roads, geothermal tarmacs, digging up all of our landfills and pulling out used recyclable materials and recycling it. And then, and then also just like, and then something that we can do now is just pulling from other countries that are doing things that may work for their system, but maybe work for us, like not trying to reinvent the wheel too much. Have anything to add?
Nope.
So, table right here. Sorry. Yeah. That doesn't have to be straight, that's fine.
Well, it's fine.
Yes.
We'll make it work. Do you want to start with your
Yeah,
side?
we were talking about vision for the future. Some people want to maintain a lot of what's here in Redlands. The Redlands Bowl should still exist. Maybe the Esri Forum still continues. Preserving architecture and agriculture. And really making the library a central part of the community. And really still having books rather than all e-books. Being able to hold it. Lots of mature trees, walking paths. There's a lot of overlap with other things that people have talked about. Really promoting small businesses and buying local. Let's see.
Medical services was really.
Yeah, we thought about the cool surface technology and everything should have that in the future. And hopefully adequate water somehow. And some of the ideas that were mentioned might be able to have that happen. And also like reflective roofing, where the heat gets reflected away and keeps the house cool, and sharing, community sharing of not only agriculture, but also like people who have tools, being able to share what you have, so not everybody has a duplicate tools and things that they have to buy for themselves. They can share them among their neighbors. We talked about getting the warehouses minimized or repurposed, and talked about them possibly being a place for hydroponic farming. And also world-class health care and mental health care.
And you also have things behind it, but, you know, freeway noise, unsafe streets, it wasn't mentioned in homelessness. The unhoused, I think, goes with the idea that we need better healthcare and better access to that healthcare, including affordable living. I think the things that we kind of talked about a lot was like, how do we get from point A to point B, and what can we do in the interim? And you had mentioned like planting trees on the north side of Redlands, because on the south side we have a lot of big trees and walking spaces that are shaded, and they're not so much on the north side of Redlands. We talked about this app called Map Your Neighborhood, which helps you lend items to people, and I think making people more aware of what their neighbors have that they could potentially use and share, rather than saying I've got to go to Home Depot or somewhere else to go get a tool or, you know, a kitchen appliance or something like that. And then we really talked a lot about sharing our resources and finding a way to leverage like existing systems like OfferUp, and trying to find a way in the future to make them not be something you have to pay for, you know, like that, where we would actually share resources. Yeah, exactly. And then I think, to me, the most important thing that we talked about was in the interim that we can do is create community, not in just ways of showing up like this, but inviting people that you don't necessarily know into your home, or creating new ways to support each other, because I think if we don't talk to each other and we only show up to things like this, then we won't get to the point where we're looking to go, you know?
Right. And last but not least, we did it all. We did it.
Okay, so some of the things that we were thinking of the community, the way the community would look in 2 years would be a lot more local food systems, home gardens, community gardens, just more food security overall. There's so much food to go around. Everyone should be hungry. Urban forests to help cool the area and have more trees for birds and pollinators. Sustainable health practices that are evidence-based. Zero waste. We do repair cafe and things like that, so just more sharing and repairing of items and reducing consumerism. And I love what you guys said about the warehouses. Those are great ideas, and if there's less consumerism, there's less need for warehouses all over the place. Community-wide environmental education from a very young age, so that children understand what it takes to have a healthy ecosystem and climate, and are prepared for jobs in that field. A healthier climate, we have less intense fires and natural disasters if we get to a level of global warming that's healthy. City-provided rainbows, so some of the water catchment things that you guys were talking about, we were thinking rainbows. I love the idea of permeable roads and sidewalks. That's like next level. And sustainable transportation, bikes, shuttles, and building design that includes passive heating, cooling, and just more technological ideas.
Well, we took a look at this whole list, and then we thought, well, right now we're doing some people are doing some of these things, and we need to scale that up. So we know we're going to get there. And then 10 years, in 10 years, we'd really like to see more trees, community gardens, sustainable energy is the norm. Those are some reachable goals, and then steps for that would be educate and place it. Convince, we have a hard time everybody seeing eye to eye, and so we just, that was our solution to that. Hopefully we can educate instead of trying to convince everybody that we're right.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. So, cascade. That's okay. We can clean up whatever we need to in a second. So I wanted to show, not my cute little wallpaper. I wanted to show, let's see if this works. There were cloud responses. So I took notes on what people listed, and yeah, so you can see community and gardens are the big things that folks shared. But yeah, so that's the result, and those are the themes. So it's great that we had some themes from this. So I want us last to just think about summarizing for ourselves what we've heard, what we've done. Let everybody kind of like take this in for just a moment if you want to. I don't want to move on from it too quickly. Yeah, I think that's a really cool list of stuff. I also want to just give like a shout out. It wasn't mentioned, but the mall renovation and demo. I really hope that the mall is not there in 2075. Yeah, if it is, I don't know. My 90-year-old self will be really mad. All right. So let's take a moment to like reflect and summarize a few moments. And so I wanted, we've seen this, right, which is like the words that you heard, but I want us to think a little bit about, first like what caught your attention, like just what kind of stood out to you in what you heard, and maybe try to think about what connects some of the ideas that you heard. Does anyone want to talk a little bit about that? Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to say that every poster had education as a big factor, which is, I feel like change happens with knowledge, and so I feel like implementing ways of how to educate the public on these issues is the way to start, the change.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing. Caught my attention as well. Yeah.
One of the presenters talked about certain projects in other cities. So what caught my attention was looking at current success stories instead of just trying to build from zero.
Yeah, I think that's really important, right? A lot of the things that we want to do, other places have done it, and maybe we're an example for some stuff as well. But I think that's really a good idea. What else? Yeah.
A lot of people mentioned really cool tech ideas, and so I think that's really like a lot of solutions already exist. We just need to work on implementing at a larger scale.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think, and to me, and this was what I noticed kind of sitting in at a couple tables for a few minutes, was that a lot of people are mentioning, okay, there's like a little bit of this going on, but in 2075, I hope that this is everywhere, right? Like more community gardens, more like pedestrian spaces and community spaces, so that it's kind of the norm. And I also like your point about technology, I think, right? We will have better technology. We may not know what it looks like, but we will. So some of these cool things like the kinetic roads may be a reality. This is sort of related, but I don't know, what are some ideas that like get you excited about what you've heard? What are some other feelings that you've had with what you've heard?
Turning warehouses into something else. It's just such a beautiful idea. We're in a greenhouse, that's just how we're going to do it, and making them more like community spaces for the community rather than.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, talking about turning a warehouse into something else. My son and his wife were in Japan during the Christmas break because my granddaughter and her family live over there. They're teaching English down in Fukuoka. And my daughter-in-law took her grandchildren, her granddaughters, to a strawberry picking thing in a warehouse in Japan in December. So they have these indoor strawberry patches in January and February, and you can come in and you are given a pair of scissors and a little basket. And for 40 minutes, they give you a little timer to put in your pocket. And for 40 minutes, you can cut all the strawberries you can. You can eat them or take them home, whichever you want, but you have 40 minutes to do them. So there's an idea for a race.
I was gonna say, sign me up. Sounds great. Wow. Yeah.
One of the things that got me excited, this was so much fun talking and getting different perspectives from different ages and so forth. And somebody here said, we just need more community conversation. And I think, and it just dawned on me that like one of the most critical things maybe that we should be doing is having more things like this, where we share together, whether it's talking about our concerns, our vision, how we get there, and just try to form more of a community consensus, you know, about that.
Yeah.
I think that's a great thing to invest some time and energy into.
Maybe broaden that to neighborhood conversations.
Yeah.
As part of that.
Yes.
Not just gatherings like this once a month, but
Right.
neighborhood.
Right. I think that's really important. And even, absolute consensus on everything isn't the goal, right? Like, we're going to have areas that we disagree on with any two people in the room, but there's so much that I think we all overlap on, and then even if we were to talk to our neighbors, I think there's a lot of overlap, and those are the places where we can work. I agree. We sort of started getting into my next idea, so anyone can kind of speak to any of these. But if anyone wants to talk about themes, other themes that we haven't mentioned yet that stood out to you, or just anything that stood out to you. Yeah.
Something that I would want to kind of building on what everybody else is saying is like the community aspect, right? But also like broadening that community, so like policy change, how do we create something that's going to last and live on longer and further than us? So like implementing that, changing that mindset and a deeper, more core creative aspect.
Yeah, that's a really great way to put that. I love that idea, and drawing that out. That's wonderful. Yeah.
Somebody else mentioned, I think about corporations taking more responsibility. So I think the theme stood out that, from my understanding, that there needs to be a shift between corporate power to local civilian power.
Yeah. I will say that there's very little reason to think that we will have the same economic system in 50 years. If for no other reason than we're going through one of the biggest energy transformations in human history, like right now, and the other energy transformations that we've been through have like massively changed how our society organizes itself. So, I am hopeful, genuinely, that will be good, and sort of in some of the ways that you outlined there. So I think that's a good, really great point. Think for a moment about your takeaway. Oh, I'm sorry, did you have a hand up? Okay. Think for a moment about your takeaways. Anyone want to talk a little bit about we've already been talking about this, but I guess just to kind of add what you're taking away from tonight. It sounds like we're going to try to have conversations and do some other things, but yeah.
I guess my big takeaway, I'm not from Redlands, so I have to work here, is more communities need to be as tight-knit as Redlands. So I'm from Beaumont, and Beaumont doesn't have anything like this where people can come together. And just like, maybe it's like, maybe I just put into this situation where I'm more aware of Redlands community events, but I follow Beaumont pages, and they don't have these type of events advertised. And so I just feel like a big start of doing this nationally is, having cities, have organizations in the bigger cities that care about the community.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, right? We need to spread, I mean, and in the Inland Empire, it's important that Redlands has other communities as neighbors so that we can do things like, start community solar, for instance, right? Which the city is maybe open to, some other cities in the Inland Empire want to do it. And just exchanging ideas between them, having that positive change take place in those communities. I think that's great. All right. Well, oh, yes.
I just feel, I don't even know how to say this, except for that I like the exercise because it's such a positive, like, it's so easy to fall into a trap of thinking that things are just terrible. And even though that we didn't change anything actually right now, just thinking about what it could be like you said, is such an important exercise, and I appreciate it.
Sure, yeah, thanks. I've been studying climate change for 20 years, so you gotta figure out a way to make it through psychologically. Okay, well, that's it from me, but I think the ANCA folks are gonna talk about upcoming events. So thanks everyone, I think this was a really wonderful exercise.
Wow, wasn't that fun? I'm having a hard time shifting into this because I'm still back in this exercise, and it was so fun to talk about this stuff, right? Yeah, and thank you, Nick. That was just really, really helpful. And I hope some of you are interested in talking about how we can keep this going practically, maybe bring this more into our third Wednesday events here. But right now, I just need to walk you through some of the things coming up so you know what we're all about here. But one of the events that's coming up is this Saturday, the Repair Cafe. How many of you have been to Repair Cafe? Okay, quite a few of you. Okay, I hope you're helping to spread the word. We're getting a lot of people. It's kind of creating a buzz now, and I think that's a lot thanks to Caitlin and getting the city really behind this and publicizing it and so forth. So hope to see you on Saturday with your broken stuff. Then this next program for Resilient Living, this is called Resilient Living, Facing Climate Challenges Together. It'll be the third Wednesday of February. And it's called Foods for Resilience. And it's really going to be all about our food system. I know in our group we talked about the importance of a local food system. And it's something that we can absolutely start now.